Let's talk to Mike Van Dulken. He is the head of research at Accendo Markets. Very good morning to you,
Good morning.
Mike. Right, it seems an age ago that you were here. We were talking about the FTSE 100, and we've got a slide. Let's just recap where we were. We were talking about this flag-type formation,
Yes.
and obviously there's a lot of people who don't believe in the technicals, but you were suggesting this was a pause before a move down to 6,700.
Yeah.
And clearly, since your last interview, we're on our way, as they say.
Well, indeed, but I mean, let's not forget when we last discussed this, it's not like we were in the middle of the flag. We had already broken down, which had opened the door to a second leg much further. As with technicals, you're always looking for confirmation. You're not looking to preempt a move, never. When you do, most of the time you mess it up. It's about looking for things to keep an eye on, which ultimately confirm and then hopefully prove yourself right. So this was a classic there when, I mean, you'd be definitely looking at that after the breach of 7,100. And as it was, we saw another, 250 points to the downside. And the potential now is that we're seeing another mini pause, which could indeed send us lower. And I think we have a second chart which shows that the FTSE remains under pressure going back over the last 2 weeks. This morning we saw a good jump back towards 6,950 thereabouts, at which it's paused, and the potential is for it to pull back. If we break below 6,900, it could mean that we're on for, as I said, another mini leg lower as part of the bigger leg lower, which could ultimately see the FTSE fall back as far as 6,700, which is another 250 points.
Well, it strikes me at the moment, and this is not always the case, that the fundamentals and the technicals are almost agreeing with each other in terms of lots and lots of negatives and not too many positives.
Often they're very much against each other. It's difficult to try and reconcile. But for the moment, they are, in your favour. If you're looking for a bearish reason to be, or a reason to be bearish on the FTSE, there are plenty of reasons to be so. One major one is the ever strengthening pound, which is a huge hindrance for many names on the FTSE 100. Then we've got Trump, waiving his trade tariffs and where that goes. Although for the moment China seems to be playing it down and being fairly muted, and he's offering exemptions for anyone except China who's particularly unhappy. So I don't think for the moment he's really angling for a genuine trade war. It's not in his interest with the November elections coming up. I think he's looking at this as a very good means of leverage for getting what he wants on the global scale, and it probably will play in his favour, quite frankly.
Okay, well, let's move on to a couple of stocks that you've chosen. Let's kick off with easyJet, a daily chart. What are your thoughts here?
Well, we've actually played this one twice, both long and short, and that's just within the month of March.
Okay.
So
purely trade in the range.
Purely trade in the range. Now, the range in itself, in terms of the long, was the bounce from 1,550. We took it up to just shy of 1,700. We tend to look for exits just before the top. When you try and get everything out of it, it's
technical analysis is not an exact science, as I keep saying.
So there already was a very shallow falling high. So you're looking to get out well before 1,700, and then the very sharp reversal offered a very quick short trade to the downside. Only look as far as the previous bounce in terms of your target. So I'm wondering now whether we got another option to trade up to the downside. It's in a long-term rising trend. It's still doing well. If anything, Ryanair is the one having a bit of issues. They've had to bow to the unions, having to give a lot of ground. It had been Ryanair, which was the easy winner of the budget airlines for so long. Just wonder whether it's actually easyJet's turn to have a bit more positives.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to Barclays Bank, a 4-hourly chart. Obviously, the fundamentals, we've seen a stake holder coming in.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Well, this again is another one, coming back to what we talked about technicals earlier, looking for clues of things to watch, not preempting. For me, I wonder here whether we've got an option to trade either to the upside or the downside, depending on which way we break.
So we're literally sitting on a key chart point.
Absolutely. You put alarms on both the support line and I think that resistance line, and it could give you an option either way. The pullback over the last week or so came back to fill this gap. You see the gap up on the 19th of February. It jumped. So that pullback from the 19th of March through to Friday's lows closed that gap to 203 pence. If we break below that, there's downside to 195 rising support. It's about 5%.
Yep.
If we get a break to the upside above 206, 207, it could mean we open the door for a rise back towards the highs of 219, which is about 7%, I think.
Okay, so again, a critical chart point. There's gaps to be filled to the upside, and I note, and the old adage of key resistance turning into key support.
Absolutely. So I think this is
decision time.
Again, within a longer term rising trend, you'd have it that this trend can continue.
Yep.
Even if we do break to the downside, it would mean that support probably does kick in at 195.
Right.
That said, the fundamentals could always change markedly, but with an activist investor on board now, wanting to get the most out of the company and the share price, you'd like to think that uptrend still has legs, and that's a key lesson in the charts. Don't offer you a trade every moment you look at them, but they offer you things to look at for the future, and it's about getting those levels in, getting alarms in to alert you when those levels have been hit. That's when the trade can be on. So I say that to most clients, looking at a chart today doesn't mean there's a trade to be had today, but it will give you options for the future.
Mike, on that note, happy Easter to you and your family.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Cheers.